Greetings everyone, welcome back and thank you for being here today. For this lesson, I want to show you how to paint detailed clouds. So we're going to have a nice blend of the dark blue background and we're going to have some big fluffy clouds and we're going to work on creating details in the clouds and creating shadows. And I'll show you how to layer and create depth in the clouds. Because I had many people ask me how I create clouds and they struggle with clouds, so that's why I decided to do another lesson on this and hopefully it can help you guys. Alright, let's go straight to it. I'm using a 14 by 18 studio canvas. I bought it straight from the store and the only thing I will do to it right now, and I'll show you to prepare my canvas. You see how loose it is? And the corners are kind of loose. There's different ways to do this. Sometimes canvases come with little wooden corners where you can put in the back and kind of hammer in and tighten up your canvas. Or another way, and I would encourage to do this first before doing that if you want, right, is to add a glaze of water everywhere, right? So I'm going to use my brush, and it doesn't matter which brush you use, but basically glaze some water. I'm going to quickly add everywhere. I'll let this dry and you'll see that once it dries, it's going to stretch it out and it's not going to be as loose. Let's continue with the materials needed. So I'm going to use my 24 set of acrylics and I'll show you which colors from this set. Titanium white, medium yellow, orange, sap green, crimson red, cobalt blue, and lamp black. For brushes, I'm going to use two of my M1 blending brushes. I'm going to use my 4-piece brush set and I'll show you what's inside. We have the number 4 and number 8 brushes right here, and we're going to be using these today the most. And also a 0 detail brush right here for all the little fine details. And this comes in a pack. It's a flat 1/2 inch brush, but we're not going to use this today. Next we need palette, and I'm going to use my palette paper here. A palette knife to mix your paint. Some paper towels to dab your brushes onto and also wipe your palette knife. And finally, a jar of water somewhere next to your canvas where it's going to be easy access. I have a little table on the side here where my brushes and the paper towels lay down flat. That way it's going to be, easy to work and reach. And also you can have the canvas laying flat on the table or whatever is most comfortable for you. If you're interested in my brushes or paints, check out colorbyfelix.com. I always say this though, you can use anything you have available, even if the color is a little off, that's okay. By the way, I forgot to mention, if you want to use a hairdryer to dry out your first coats to speed up the process, you can use that as well, or you can let it naturally dry, which takes about 20-30 minutes. The canvas is dry, and you can see how firm it became. No loose corners, just by adding water. So if that does not help, your canvas to stretch out, then you can use the wooden pieces to put in the back and kind of stretch out your canvas using a hammer and those wooden pieces. I would recommend doing this first before doing that. All right, let's mix our first colors for the background. We're going to create a little landscape here with a little bit of green grass and a path, maybe. We'll see some trees. But mainly it's going to be clouds, some big ones here. So about this much is going to be covered, right? So I'm going to mix enough to cover this area. And by the way, if you're enjoying these full-length tutorials, one of the best ways to support my channel is by joining my Patreon page. By joining, you are helping me create these free tutorials here on YouTube. And also there's benefits like choosing which topics to cover, getting these lessons commercial free, and many more. I appreciate everyone who has supported me over the years, and this wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you, and let's get to mixing. Okay, so this is what I added. 2 thumbs amount of titanium white, a little bit of orange and crimson red, and then cobalt blue, very small amount. And then a thumb amount of white, a little more crimson red, and a little more cobalt blue, less white, probably 1/2 thumb amount, more cobalt blue and a touch of crimson red, even less white here, more cobalt blue here, and lamp black. So something like this. I'm going to quickly mix this and show you what I get. Alright, so now I'm going to dab my palette knife in the water jar and use a paper towel to quickly wipe off the paint. So my palette knife is nice and fresh, and these are the colors I got. Okay, I did add a little bit more black to this one because I wanted it to be a little darker than this. Basically, we want the transition to be from light going into a little bit of a darker sky blue, right? So something like this. This is like an orangey color going into like this pinkish color and to the blue and darker blue up in the top. And a lot of this is going to be covered with clouds here. So a lot of the blue is going to be around here. But, you know, we're going to do our best to kind of play with these colors and see what we get. So the next step is to pick up one of our blending brushes and our water jar. And we're going to dab it in the water all the way. Squeeze part of the water out, okay? So we have a little bit of water in there, but it's not dripping. So with a little bit of water and paint, I'm gonna have my water jar next to the canvas, where if I'm saying I'm quickly dabbing my brush in the water, just the tip of my brush, I'm just dabbing it if I need more water, and then I'll pick up more paint. So I always like to start with the lightest color, which is, we're gonna start from the bottom area, and we're gonna, with our M1 blending brush and paint with some water, we're going to pick up this color like this randomly, and we're going to add it right here. And I'm going to swirl. Now I feel it a little like it needs a little bit more water because it feels a little rough. So I'm going to dab it lightly in the water real quick and then pick up more paint and swirl. Right, swirl real quick, about this much. Okay, a little more. And then dab my brush in the water, just a tip, and then the next color, this one, I'm gonna add it right over this. I'm gonna dab my brush in the water, pick up more of this color, and add it right here. Maybe bring it down a bit. I'm going to dab my brush lightly in water, and I'm going to start using this blue. Mix it in a little bit with the pink. And there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be, dab my brush in water, use a little more of this blue. There's going to be clouds in the middle, so I'm not going to focus on making it perfect in the middle, but mainly the sides. We want a nice transition in the sides. Dab my brush in the water, use a little more of this color right here. And as you go up, I'm going to skip the middle area, use the darkest color, and go all the way with your darker color. Fill it in and swirl. Dab my brush lightly in the water, pick up more of the last darkest color, a little more paint. If you have too much water, you don't want water to be dripping, so okay, something like this. Let's add the pink. Let's just cover it in here. Why not? This light pink. Maybe this lighter color in the middle. There's going to be clouds in here, so I'm just going to create this quick base color in the middle. Obviously, we're going to have some bright color clouds in here, so, but just for fun, just to fill it up. Now I'm going to put my brush down in the water jar, and then with a dry blending brush, I'm going to swirl and blend everything in, starting from the lightest area. Swirl and take away all the brush strokes, right? And mainly focus on the outside areas first, because that's where it's going to be. We're going to leave it as it is. Mainly the outside first. Okay. And then you can go to the middle and blend this in. Just to take away the brush strokes. Like I said, we're going to add more details right here. It's all going to be clouds. This is our first base. So there you go. A quick blend is done. We got a transition from like this pinkish color going into the dark blues. That's what we want. I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to clean my blending brushes so that the paint won't dry out, and we're going to continue. Okay, I got a new water jar. My blending brushes are clean. I'm going to put my number 4 and number 8 brushes in the water jar because I want them to soak up a little bit of water. Let them sit for a couple minutes. It'll make it soft after some time, which makes it easier to blend. So I'm going to let that sit while I mix my next colors. And the next part, the background is dry. Now the next part is to sketch out our clouds. So as the first base. So I added a thumb amount of white straight out of the tube, and then a little bit less white here, cobalt blue, crimson red, and a touch of orange. And then less white here, more cobalt blue, lamp black, and crimson red, a little bit of each. I'm going to mix these and we'll show you what I get. As I was mixing, I decided to add cobalt blue and a touch of white because this one turned out to be more on the gray red side, and I want another color to be leaning on the blue side. So I'm going to take part of this color, a small amount, and quickly mix it with this. All right, I'm going to take my brushes down, set them on the paper towel, and I'm going to pick up my number 8, dab it in the water and tap it on the paper towel so it won't have too much water, but it's nice and damp. And these are the colors I have. So it's a little bit leaning towards light blue, and this is leaning towards like a grayish red, right? So I just wanted another shade that's more blue so I can play with the shading of my clouds. This is our first layer. So first we're going to sketch out our clouds, and then we're going to add more layers on top. Usually with clouds, I like to add about between 3 to 4 layers on top to really make it soft and detailed. And the more layers you add, the more cleaner it'll look, and the less brush strokes you'll see, because you can really make it soft with a little bit of damp brush, water, and some paint. Okay, so with my number 8, let's start from the top. Let's start getting the top kind of sketched out, the big ones, and then we're going to work our way down. Just the white. Let's just use the white. Okay, my brush has a little bit of water and the white. So I kind of have like a little cloud showing through here, but I'm going to cover it. We're going to make it a little bigger. I'm going to make it go up in here. So and let's pretend the light is coming from the left and going into the right, right? So we're going to have more of the brighter highlights on the left side of each cloud, and the shadows more on the right. Just keep that in mind as you paint. So I'm going to dab my brush in the water, pick up more white. And this is going to look rough, and you're going to see the brush strokes and all that stuff because this is our first layer. But I'm just getting the idea down first. So on the swirl, kind of start to bring this down. And there's no right way of shaping your clouds as long as you have it kind of circular and, you know, make it look a little fluffy. You don't want to overdo it, but keep some little separations, some big separations, and okay, dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel, and continue using the white, just the white and white. Dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel, use more white, and we'll continue sketching. Continue. Okay, I'm just going to cover part of this. Okay, dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel, more white. We're going to continue. As you go down, the clouds are gonna be a bit smaller. I'm gonna dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel, pick up more white. Okay, dab my brush in the water, continue with just the white. Now I'm going to use a little bit of white and this color we have mixed. Let's use more of this pink color. I don't want it to be too white. I'm going to clean my brush actually. In the water jar, just quickly swirl your brush, and it doesn't need to be fully clean, and then tap it on the paper towel. And let's actually use this color by itself. Yeah, that's much better. You see, it's not as bright. We want it to be more misty looking. So in the corner of my brush, swirling and kind of carrying the paint around, making it blended. And then you could use a little bit of white, not too much. Use a little more white. Dab my brush lightly in the water, tap it on the paper towel, use white and a little bit of this pinkish color. Use more of this color by itself. Trying to create a little bit of a blend on the bottom, softer blend, and then it's going to be more detailed on top. I know it looks rough right now, but bear with me. We're going to start to see the picture as we add more layers. A little more white. All right, so now I'm gonna dab my brush in the water, and I'm gonna use a little bit of this darkest color first. And let's just add it in our clouds. The dark areas now. Dab my brush in the water, continue. Dab my brush in the water. Let's use a little bit of this blue and the gray, mix those two together. Use a little bit of this pink. And white. And you don't need to clean your brush, but the most important thing to keep in mind here is that your brush is damp. So if it starts to dry out and you feel like it's rough, right, when you're blending, then that means you should dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel, because water helps it make smooth transitions. So a little bit of white. And I'm swirling, kind of blending the colors I just added. Let's use a little bit of this blue. Okay, maybe this gray. Make some areas a little darker. And this, remember, this first layer, we're just getting the idea down first, the lights and the darks, and then from there we'll shape and make it more solid and cleaner. And so with the darkest color again, we're gonna continue adding it quickly. Use a little bit of this light blue. White. Okay, a little bit more blue. Dab my brush slightly in the water, tap it on the paper towel. White. And I'm using the corner of my brush, swirling. And you see, even with the background being dry already, the second layer, you could see it's starting to look even cleaner now that we're going over. So let's add a little bit more white in here. I want this to stand out. We're going to switch, and create more of details with a different brush, but we're just trying to cover the first layer real quick. So now let's continue. Let's add the white. This is going to be a bright area here. So I'm going to swirl. Kind of blend it out. White. Let's use a little bit of this blue. So with clouds, as long as you get the idea, where the light is hitting, right? And you create the shadows and then also not just flat. You don't want a flat cloud. You want to create some dark shadows inside your cloud and then add lighter on top. That way this cloud looks like it's behind, so you can create depth. And you can really have fun with this and take it the way where you want it to go. So a little bit more white, and quickly use the light blue, bluish color we mixed. Mix it in here. Okay. And then go back to the white. And add more lighter areas inside this cloud. Okay, use a little bit of this blue. Go back to the white. Use this blue. And then white again. Let's use a little bit of blue on this side. I want this to be a little more faded. Let's add a little more white. You see, the more layers I add, you could see the separation and the depth starting to happen, right? And this is pretty much the first, going into the second layer, right? So we're going to be adding more layers. So a little bit more white in here. A little bit of blue. Let's add a little bit more white. Dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel. Let's add the white on this side. Make it a little bit brighter here. Okay, go back to the white. A little more white in here. And then as you go down, we're going to create some little ones. So I'm going to switch my brush real quick to number 4 for the little parts. Use the white, maybe a little bit of blue, mainly white. Mix those two and dab my brush lightly in the water, tap it in onto the paper towel. These are more of the smaller ones because we want to create a fade and transition. Dab my brush in the water. And because I have a little bit of paint, I don't have too much paint. It's mainly water and that bluish white color we added. And I'm kind of blending, you know, pressing and swirling and trying to create that fade going into these clouds. So let's use a little bit of this pink and white. Go over this cloud again. Kind of fade it out. Dab my brush in water. Okay. Just the white, we're going to start to add some little more details, brighter details. Dab my brush lightly in the water. Tap it on the paper towel, continue with the white. And this is now we're adding the second layer on top. You can see it's kind of rough looking, but you have your shape of your clouds, and now we can work on defining it and making it look even cleaner. Okay, it's a new day and I'm gonna start on my third and fourth layers. I got a quick sketch and the positioning of my clouds. I also made them a little bigger right here all around, but totally up to you the shape, how you want your clouds to be. But now for the third layer, we're gonna start to really make it pop and add more shadows and highlights. You know, I kind of started doing it a little bit, but it still needs some work here. So I'm gonna show you which colors I am going to mix. So straight out of the tube, white, and then a thumb amount of white and a very small amount of medium yellow and orange, barely anything as you could see. And then less white, cobalt blue, and a small touch of lamp black. And then more cobalt blue and a little more lamp black. This is what I have so far. I'm going to take part of this color and bring it to this one and mix this. Okay, with these colors, we're going to start to add our third layer and our number 4 brush. I'm going to work on this upper right corner first and then work our way to the left and down. So with the damp number 4 brush, let's start to add a little color. From the sun, we want to add a little bit of this orange yellow bright color, and we're going to add it where we think it's going to be the brightest. For example, we're going to have I'm going to dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, and pick up more paint. And we're going to work our way creating some brighter highlights. Okay, dab my brush in the water. We want it to have a little less paint. Continue with the same color. Let's brighten some of these areas here. And because I have more water, you could see it's becoming transparent. And kind of blend that out gently. Continue with the same color. We're adding a little bit more color to our clouds. A quick glaze like this. Go back now, I'm going to dab my brush in water and use the white. White will be the brightest color, and we're just going to go over some of these a little bit and create a little bit of a brighter And it's still looking rough, but you'll see once we go in with a detail brush and clean some of these bigger sections of shadows, it will really start to stand out a little more. I'm just trying to fill in the bigger areas first. And then with a detail brush, we can do a lot of cool things. Lightly dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, pick up more white. Let's use a little bit of this blue and some water. A little more of this blue. A little more of that blue with a little bit of water so that it can run smooth on the canvas. Trying to create a smooth transition, smooth blend. And then as you get a little into the darker areas, you can use a little bit of this darker color with the blue, light blue. And go in here, try to create a smoother transition. I'm going to dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel so I won't have too much paint. And kind of swirl and let it blend out to the background. I'm going to use a little bit of this darkest color. Go in the middle right here. Come back to this light blue with a little bit of water. And around the top, we're going to try to make it a little cleaner and softer. So a little more water and this light blue paint right behind. Okay, continue. We'll stop right there for now. Use a little bit of white. All right, let's pick up our detail brush and we're gonna add some darker shadows, and then we're gonna go back and add the lighter shadows again. So this is gonna be a lot of back and forth. For example, let's use this. So dab it in the water, and then we're gonna use a little bit of paint and some water. We're gonna swirl like this, and we're gonna start to really define the shapes and the shadows and make it look more like fluffier, you know, and attach some little parts of the clouds together. So for example, we're going to start from this corner and we're going to work right here. So I'm going to add that, break this cloud apart, because you want to create some transitions. Okay, and then down my brush in water, use the lighter blue. Right after this one, we're going to add the lighter blue and kind of swirl and blend those two colors together lightly. Down my brush in water, and then use a little more of the lighter blue. Take away a little bit of the hard shadows. We don't want it to be too strong. Okay, so we're going to use a little bit of this light blue and a little bit of this color. Let's do an in between so it won't be so strong. And in here, we're going to add another. So now I'm going to use the light blue. Dab it in the water, and water just makes it run smooth. So that's why I use water a lot. And this is where the little details start to come in. So you can add some shadows inside. And that's how you create depth. And right now it's looking, harsh, but we'll go over and add some more lighter colors to take away the sharpness a bit. Yeah, my brush in the water, use the light blue. Use the light blue again. Create some little details right in here. I know this is a lot of detailed work, but I want to really show you how I make my little details, because that's how you, if you wanted to make it look more realistic, make your clouds have definition. And this is gonna really, once you add more, you'll see it's gonna really, there's different ways of painting clouds, but this is one way I haven't really shown you guys here on YouTube, and I wanted you guys to see exactly how I work on creating this type of clouds with fluffy, detailed, and hopefully you guys can catch these techniques and understand what I'm doing. So the goal is, remember, on the right side, it's going to be more darker shadows. Go back to the light blue. And on the left side, it's going to be brighter. Let's use the light blue again. Continue combining a little bit here, going into the darker areas. Okay. Let's use a little bit of this darkest color. And let's separate this one. And you can add as many as you want. There's no right way of, yours could look different. Shadows. And you could add less if you want, right? So again, with the darkest color, I'm going to add a little bit of separation here. I'm lightly swirling, trying to kind of blend it out, right? Okay, continue with the darkest color. Go back to the light blue. Dab my brush in the water, continue with the light blue. The darkest color again. Okay. Let's add dark color in here. Make this stand out a little more, so dab my brush in the water, use the darkest color with some water. And we're gonna try to add a little bit of a darker transition right in here. Dab my brush lightly in the water. Go back to the light blue. Dab my brush lightly in the water again. It's a lot of back and forth, but it's that technique. Hopefully I'm not annoying you guys by repeating myself, but I just want you guys to understand what I'm doing exactly. Okay. See, when it's rough like this, that's when I dab my brush in the water, pick up a little bit of paint, and with water it just makes it sharper and fills in the cracks. Water kind of flows in the cracks and makes it softer. Let's add a little bit of a darker shadow in here. And you see, the more details we start to add, little details, the more you start to see each little cloud and the depth of the clouds, right? You start to see the ones behind, the ones up close. And this is our first, well, this is our first kind of layer of detail, right? We haven't really gone in with a lighter tone, but let's just continue with the darker colors first, since we're already working on it, and then we'll go in with the lighter. Light blue color again. Also, stepping back, looking at your canvas from far away. Also, what helps is taking a photo of the painting once you're, done with a section. You can take a photo and step back or take a look at it, from far away. It really helps to kind of see and adjust and see what you need to, work on or adjust. I do that all the time. Let's make a connection here. You can see you can add as many little details as you want. Go back, play with these colors. So this light blue and the darker color. So I'm creating some flatter ones on the bottom here, because if I do all of them circular, it just will look, too perfect. You want to make them look, some of them look skinnier, some of them look circular clouds, shapes is what I'm talking about. And that's why here on the bottom I'm creating more of a, not a circular shape, but more of a flatter look. Separations. I'm going to add a little bit more of the darker color. Make this a little more darker on this side. Use a little bit of this light blue and blend it in here. Dab my brush lightly in the water. That way we have some, shadows like in the background. So here you go. It's basically the same thing. I'm going to spend some time doing that just on this part, right? Once I'm done, there's a little bit to do. I'll show you what I get, but just this area and this area right here, basically. And again, it does not have to look like mine, but you get the idea, right? Play with these colors, and basically the dark areas is where I want it to be more contrasty, more brighter, right? Or darker. And then when I go into more of the lighter areas, I then use the light blue so that there will be a transition going on, okay? So that's what I'm going to do, and then after that, we're going to add the lighter highlights. The next step, I'm going to pick up my number 4 and use this light blue and kind of go over Some of these maybe use a little bit of this darker blue, mix those two together. Get an in-between shade. And then I'm gonna go in and add a little bit of a shadows on some of these areas. So a little bit more light blue. And now we're going to do the same technique with a little bit of white, just white by itself. And then we'll come back to the light yellow orange color later. We're going to glaze it, but first let's add some brighter highlights, for example, like right here. Right? With water and same technique and a little bit of white. We're going to start to add the brighter highlights. Alright, I'm going to spend some time adding all the little highlights, and then we're going to continue adding the final layer, which is the fourth one, finalizing this section. And then we'll do the same thing to our other parts of the clouds. And then now I'm going to go back to the darkest color with a little bit of the light blue, mix those two together. And I'm going to take away a little bit of the sharpness on some of these, glaze it over, because we want to make these clouds look soft, right? Now that we added the little details with dab your brush in the water, and then more with water so that it could be a glaze. And we're going to go over, make it a little softer. All right, once we added the dark, now we'll go back to the light. So I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to use a little bit of this white and this kind of orangey color. Mix those two. We're going to create a little bit of color, glow, with water, and we're going to go over some of these parts where we want it to be more brighter. So I'm going to use a little more water and white, mix those two, and we're going to glaze going over you can go over most of the areas you added because we want to make it look softer. We don't want to make it look too rough. So more white. And go over gently so it'll look a little faded. You could use a little bit of this blue actually for the background. Okay, a little more white. On this side, I want to brighten some of these clouds up in here because I want it to have that glow, the brightest glow. Dab my brush lightly in the water. And continue adding your brighter highlights. Taking away a little bit of the sharpness in the middle. So you can spend a lot of time going back and forth, cleaning, making it cleaner, correcting. For example, this part, I'm going to use a little bit of light blue and white, mix those two and try to take away a little bit of that so it won't be so dark in there. So just play with color and make it even smaller so that it won't be too sharp for us here. And like I said, take a step back, look at your painting, see what you can do to make it look a little softer and cleaner, right? Using the techniques, going back and forth, and then until you're happy with it. So that's how I work and create these fluffy clouds with water and these colors. And if your paint is drying out, don't worry. Mix similar colors. It does not have to look the same, right? If it's a little bit off, that's okay. The more variety of color you add, the better your clouds will look, more interesting. You can even add some pink color to it, like add a glaze of pink on the bottom, on some of these bottom areas. It'll really make it look even, For example, I'll show you, just to give you an idea, what you can do. Straight out of the tube, we're gonna squeeze out crimson red. Let's use our number 8 brush, dab it in the water, for example, right? A little bit of crimson red, not much, more water, you could see. And we're gonna add a glaze right where it meets that bluish color. Okay, and that will really make it look even more smoother to your clouds, transitioning to that gray blue from the orange. We just want a little bit of color. That's why I decided to add some light orange, a little bit, not too much. So a little bit of red, right? And we're just gonna add it more on the bottom where the darker shadows are, not everywhere. As you go up, we want it to be bright right here, because we want this to have depth in it. So you could see, added a glaze of red, crimson red, and that already gives it some pink, look to our clouds, which makes it even more interesting. All right, so now I'm gonna finalize it, work a little bit to make it a little less sharp and more softer, going back and forth until I'm happy, right? The goal is to try to create a soft transition, taking away, we don't want too many sharp areas, right? But we do want these little details, these shadows in there. So, go back and forth until, like I said, you're happy with your clouds. But basically that's the technique. And now once we're done with this, we're gonna move on to the next clouds. Okay, I can come back to this one later, but for now, I'm happy with it. Let's move on to this section. So we're gonna do this cloud right here, this part. Okay, and we're gonna work in sections like this. So you can totally take a break if you want to, come back to it the next day, But that's how I like to work. I like to focus on one part at a time. And then once everything's done, I step back and take a photo, look at it, and see if I need to adjust and take away if I overdid it, things like that. But let's continue with our number 4. Dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel. Let's start with this bluish color. And let's go around like we did here. Let's make it softer. On the edges, dab my brush lightly in the water again so that it will run smooth. So I'm trying to have a little bit of paint, but not too much. And go around here first. Okay, let's go to the darkest blue. And we're gonna try to add a little bit of a shadows, transitions. Demo brush lightly in the water. Use more of this grayish blue. And let's add one right in here, but let's correct this. I don't like how this goes in here. Let's make it more circular. Let's go like this. First, we're just creating our darker shadows, and then we'll go back and add the lighter highlights, and then we'll start to detail like we did this one, right? Okay. Let's make this a little more circular. And I'm going to brush lightly in the water again. And tap it on the paper towel, use a little bit of paint. And I'm going to swirl and try to make it look softer. Okay. We'll come back to the darker. Let's actually make it darker in here a bit. Let's use a little bit of this light bluish gray color and blend those in. And then we can use some white and correct some of these. Okay, let's use a little bit of this yellow, this bright yellow orange with water. Let's add a little bit of color. Demo brush lightly in the water. And continue with the white and a little bit of this color again. And we're going to add a little glaze over here. Just a little glaze. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush, use just the white, and brighten some of these areas here. And I'm just getting the bigger areas. Then I'll go back and add all the little details with my detail brush. Let's brighten up this area as well. All right, that's good. We'll work with our detail brush to make it look prettier and detailed. Here, actually, let's do a little bit more. I want to let this go in a little bit more lighter in here. So I'm going to use white, maybe a little bit of this color, yellowish. All right, that's good enough. Now we can transition to our detail brush and do the same thing we did to this one. I'm going to start to add my darkest, play with these colors again, light blue and the dark blue. We're going to start with the darkest blue and some water, swirl our brush, and go over the parts where it's the most, you're going to have the most like contrast, most darkest areas, and try to make it a little more detailed. I'm going to add a little bit of light blue in here, connecting to this cloud. I want to create separation from the background color. Okay, go back to the darkest color. Continue adding your darker highlights. And you see I'm kind of shaking it, like making it not perfect, because you know how clouds have little, movements, and they're never straight. So I'm going to spend some time doing this, and I'll show you what I get, okay? Like I said, you can add as many as you want. This is totally up to you. maybe since this cloud is more closer to us, it's not as small as this one. The separations are going to be a little bit wider, which will give it more of a nice depth and good look to our clouds. Okay, keep that in mind. And when I go into the lighter areas, I'm going to switch to lighter blue so that it'll transition, right? Nicely. Just add a few of those in the middle. Some in here. Lighter blue, right? And then back to the darker blue. All right, I'll show you what I get once I'm done with this. And also, same thing, after you're done with your darker, you can go play with these colors and water and go over and add your lighter highlights. So have fun with this and enjoy the process. Okay, so this is how it's looking so far. It's a little sharp, right? It's a little too dark of the dark shadows in the back, so I'm going to make it softer. And the way to do that, it's very easy to do. You can use these two colors. Let's start with just the white first and some water and my number 8 brush like this. We are going to glaze it all over like this and make it softer. You could see it's taken away all those sharp areas and making the clouds a little less intense. Okay, very easy to do. Just a glaze of water and a little bit of white or even yellow, even a little bit of color if you want. Why not? Right here, maybe right here as well. Just all over here and then let it fade out to the darker areas, but that's how you make it softer. Once we're done with this, oh, and by the way, you see that I created a little bit of a darker area here. You can use, like I showed you, crimson red or cobalt blue. You take cobalt blue, same thing with water, and you glaze it on the edges where you want more of the less, of the light showing through, because you want to create depth, right? You want to make these clouds come at you. So you want certain spots to be bright and certain areas like this is behind, right? That's how it looks like. That's the goal. So you can make it as soft as you want, as detailed as you want, but I'm going to continue to the next part. So the next area I'm going to be working is this area here. So I'm going to try to get this done right here, and I'll show you what I get. Again, it's the same technique, or going back and forth and playing with these colors. And here you go. You could see I spent a little bit more time going over with my number 4 brush and water and white paint to soften these areas so that they won't be too sharp. So you can add as much as you want. Okay, the background is dry and I'm going to continue here. I'm not going to add a bunch of detail here. I'm going to make this a little transition from kind of detailed clouds going into more softer clouds here. That's the plan. And so this is what I added. We're going to need one color. I added more white, but I'm going to use a little bit of white, crimson red, and cobalt blue, And I'm still gonna use these colors, okay? So I'm gonna quickly mix that and show you what I get. So I decided to add a little bit of black, not too much. I'm gonna take part of this lamp black to this one, just to take away a little bit of color. I don't want it to be too pink. So I'm gonna do that here. All right, let's pick up our number 8, and we're gonna start with, let's start with white first. A little bit of white, maybe a little bit of this blue. A little bit of this blue and white. And we're gonna start to come down a little bit, for example, right here. Actually, you know what? Let's clean our brush, dab it on the paper towel, and let's just use the blue. Because I wanna create a softer transition here. That's nice right there. Okay, a little bit more of a softer transition into these clouds here. These, and then you could use a little bit of white to add a little bit of brightness to some of these clouds, but not too much. Okay, let's use a little bit of blue and white. And we're going to continue trying to make it a little softer. Okay, so a little bit more blue and white. Let's just fade it out here. Okay, basically the goal is to create a softer transition into that background color. Make your clouds misty. Okay. And here we're going to add a little bit of a bright glow. So I'm going to use this orangey color with water. And I'm going to add it right in here on the bottom. Maybe there's a sun glowing, you know, making this area a little brighter. Right? Okay. A little more. Some straight ones. Make sure your brush is damp and doesn't have too much water, then it'll run soft on the canvas. But we want to add that, maybe the light is showing through these clouds. And fade it out. We mainly want that bright area to be here. You can go up a little bit. Okay, something like this. Let's continue. Let's use white and a little bit of this pink. And let's create a little more pink. Let's create some transitions. So a little more pinkish with a little bit white. a little bit of blue, light blue. And then you can use white. To make some of these brighter. Okay, and let's add a little bit of a fade. So what we're gonna do is add a little bit of this darker blue, but we want it to be on the red side, pink side. So I'm gonna mix those a little bit together. And on the bottom here, I wanna make a little bit of a, kind of like a darker shadow. Just a hint. Okay, and then a little bit, go back to just this color by itself. Maybe a little bit of blue actually. I like that fade. And kind of bring it down. And try to fade those in together using these two colors, more on the pink side. Let's switch our brush to number 4 for the little parts. So a little bit more of this color and pink. Mix those two. Let's add a little bit of a dark shadow going in here. Okay. So a little bit of the pink and dark blue actually. More of that. I want to create a little bit of a separation here. It's a lot of back and forth, but basically the goal is to create a nice fade. So I'm gonna work on adding a little more pink on here, try to make it a little softer. And add a little bit white to brighten some of these clouds. I'm gonna add a little bit of more. Let's use this orangey color with pink, mix those two together, and let's add a little bit of smaller clouds. Faded ones. So I have more water, less paint, and I'm just gonna try to create a little transition, soft transition. Okay. And so now I can go with my detail brush and add a few details, not too much. Okay, just a few details with a dark blue, a little bit of, mix those two together with water, and so that I can create a smoother transition from the sharp lines, for example, right here, right? I'm gonna continue and I'm gonna try to make it a little, cleaner transition. Add a few of those, maybe in here, right? We just want to make it clean. So I'm going to spend some time adding my final details, and I'll show you what I get. Okay, I'll take a break with the clouds. I can always come back and correct. First, I'm going to continue and finish the painting. I'm going to create like a little path here and some grass, maybe some trees, faraway trees, and then once we detail that, then I can look and see if I need to adjust something, okay? So let's continue real quick, finish the painting, and this is what I have. A little bit of white. I took part of this white and added another color, a little bit of white here, crimson red, cobalt blue, and lamp black, and then thumb amount of white, and sap green, and medium yellow, less white here, lamp black, cobalt blue, and sap green. And also a little bit of white, lamp black, and orange, just a little bit. I'm gonna mix that. That'll be for like the road, the path here. All right, let's pick up our number 4 brush, and these are the colors I have. So something like this, you'll be good to go. Let's start with this one. And you could use masking tape, measure to make sure you're doing it evenly if you want. I'm gonna eyeball it. So I'm gonna go probably from here and just eyeball it. Okay, I'm gonna dab my brush in the water so it can run smooth. And blend it in. Okay, and then I'm gonna continue using this color. Maybe there's a mountain. That goes up and it fades out. Why not? I want to make it misty looking. And let's use a little bit of this color. Actually, let's use a little bit of white. Maybe the light is hitting part of this mountain. Okay, something like this. And I'm going back to this color, mix it with white a little bit so it won't be too intense because we want to create a softer transition. Let's use a little bit of this tan color as well. I want to create a little bit of a softer transition between the sky and the mountain. So I'm going back and forth and trying to blend those in. Maybe a little darker, right? A little bit of white. You could use a little bit of green too. And white. Make it a little bit green on the bottom here. Very small amount. More on the gray side though. Okay, continue. And it's okay if you go over the lighter areas. We're going to come back to it. I'm just trying to blend in first. Make it soft. Okay, same thing. Continue. A little bit of white and this gray. We're going to try to blend those together so it won't be so sharp. So a little bit of this gray and white. And right where you added, just gently swirl. And dab your brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, use a little bit of white, right? And try to take away, well, let's use a little bit of just a little bit of that tan color to give a little warm transition. So I'm going to swirl that. So I'm going to come back to this white, maybe a little bit of this light tan color we have mixed, and white again, and come back and add a little bit of highlights. Go over it again. Something like this. Let's add a little bit of this gray. Bit of white, so there could be a little bit of a softer transition. Okay, we'll come back. Just a quick sketch right here. We're going to come back to that. Let's continue adding, let's have our path be, so this is the center. Let's have our path kind of okay, something like this. Maybe we can actually bring it in a little bit more towards the middle. So let's do this. Scratch that, ignore that. And let's so we're gonna, I'll show you what I mean. Let's use this green. So we're gonna have grass here, more in the middle. So I'm gonna quickly glaze all this. Let's use this grayish color first. Have a little bit of this gray in here. Dab my brush in water. Let's have a little bit of gray in here. Go back to the darkest green and mix it in with the gray. And it's okay if you go over your path. We're gonna obviously, this is a sketch, the base coat. And you can go with a light green. And then back to, let's use this tan color with gray. Mix those two. Back to the green, darker green and gray. Okay. Let's add the gray a little bit in here and then the darkest green. Fill that in right here. And this side. Let's add the light green. And on this side, let's just use white for the path. We're gonna make it nicer in a bit, but let's just get it in. Correct. this a bit. Go back to the white. While our first coat is drying, I'm gonna add a couple trees, sketch them out as the base as well. So I added lemon black and crimson red straight out of the tube. You could take part of the green, mix it in for fun. We just need a dark shadow, dark color, real quick. So it's gonna look like this. Okay. Something like this, and you'll be good to go. Let's use this, and let's have a couple of our trees. So I'm gonna have a tree right here. And I'm gonna clean my brush and use this light green. Maybe use a little bit of white. Let's make it bigger. A little bit of white and green. As the base. And then as you go in, let's use a little bit of a sap green straight out of the tube. I know it looks messy right now, but you'll see. This is gonna look good once we start adding more details. But we need the base there. A little bit of a darkest color. Let's randomly go over our tree. Or a bush, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's a quick sketch right there, and then we can, dab our number 4 brush and clean it up a bit. I'm gonna use also a little bit of yellow to, give it some color. So let's just use yellow, medium yellow out of the tube. And I'm just having fun. I'm having fun with playing with color. So maybe white and yellow. Let's give it some color, bright color. Okay. A little bit of white. Okay, let's add another one. Maybe there's one in here. And another one. Go back to the light green. Let's add one more bigger one. Maybe this one's a tall, skinny one. Remember, the dark shadows are going to be more on the right side. And the lighter highlights on the left. Okay, and light green on the left. And you can use a little bit of this darker color to give some shadows. I'm going to actually make these a little bigger, taller. I want it to be okay, something like this. And now we're just having fun. You can maybe add, for fun, let's add another faraway bush, maybe next to this one. Maybe use a little bit of green. Maybe there's a couple faraway ones. Why not, right? And now we're gonna use a little bit of this darkest color with the green and create some shadows. Let's add some bright yellow highlights on this tree. Maybe a little white. A little bit of white and light green. So that light you could see from the sunlight, that light gives so much more depth to the painting. A little bit of white and the yellow. Not everywhere, we want it more in the middle. And this is just a sketch to get an idea. We're gonna work on trying to, making it look a little nicer and cleaner. Use sap green straight out of the tube. And I'm gonna switch my brush to number 8 real quick because I want this to be a little more greener. So I'm gonna use a little bit of sap green and my number 8 and just kind of add that brightest green color all over here with water randomly. And now we can go back to the white and this tan color. And then go to the darkest color and add a little bit of the darkest color and tan here. We want to create a fade from light going into And so I'm going to spend some time going back and, detailing, doing the same thing and having fun. This is extra, but you can mix more colors, right, if you're running low. But this is how you create grass as well. So after you had your layout, you can go back and with your number 8, you can do this to create this grass effect. You can just dab it. And you see how nice that looks? It's creating texture and that pretty grass look to your painting. And I'm not going to try to do it everywhere. I'm just going to skip some areas, but you get the idea, right? You can spend as much time as you want with the grass and all the little details here. There's no right way of doing this. You can create more trees if you want. So I'm going to spend some time having fun, and I'll show you what I get once I'm done. And also, you can use your detail brush, right, for the details. I'm just showing you the most important parts so that you guys can understand what I'm doing. But a little bit of water and your detail brush in this darkest color, maybe a little bit less dark. Mix it with this tan, and we're gonna, create our shadow in our path. And then as you go down, obviously, it's going to get a little sharper. Same thing on this side. And this is a quick sketch, I'm gonna obviously go back and make it even more cleaner, but you guys get the idea. And if you added too much of the dark, go back with your white and water, kind of add that glaze of the lighter color. Go back to this gray. Maybe mix this darkest color and add some little trees next to the path. A few more trees. All right, I'll be done for today. You could see I changed up the picture a little bit. I didn't like the road, so instead I added more grass, flowers, and rocks. That was not planned, but it happens. I added some more trees for fun. And again, totally up to you how much details you want to add and how many trees and things like that you want to add to your painting. But the goal here for this piece was mainly clouds, adding details to the clouds. And I also added a light glaze of just yellow and my M3 blending brush with some water to glaze over a little bit with water and some paint to give it a little yellow, like a warmer glow to my clouds. That was extra as well, but I thought since I added some orange and color here, I thought I wanted, it'd be nice to have some color in the sky as well. But here it is, all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for more. Take care and God bless.